I've talked many times about how satire in many cases does not actually speak to the reality it's trying to satirize, and it's often not very timely, it's often not very relevant. And the reason in almost all cases is that it does not ring true. If what's being satirized is your lived experience, very rarely do you can you really point to something and say, yeah, I've seen this, or this is just how it is. And I think in this movie, the reason it works so well and the reason it's been such a classic, like 27 years later, is that it really understands what kind of office life is like in a way that very, very few other things are. There's other workplace comedies that tie into this a little bit, but this is just, the hits just keep coming, right? And it's just one punch after the next. I came up with a list of 4 or 5 things that map to things I've experienced, right, just in a few years. This is all the nonsense of corporate culture kind of just condensed into like 100 minutes.
Which makes sense because, again, like I said, this is 100 minutes, whereas like The Office, I don't even know how many seasons it's ran, so you kind of have to do it in bits and parts, but also like make it, because like there's only so much you can kind of play with that. So that, yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, if you wanted to, you could absolutely do like that kind of satire in a serialized format. Absolutely. It's just not what The Office is about. It's about these people and their lives, right? And I think that is the difference. And what makes this satire work so well is that it just speaks to the sorts of things you experience if you work in that kind of environment on a near daily basis. And I think anybody who has worked that kind of job for any amount of time can find something they've experienced in one of the examples in Office Space. And I think that is why it resonates, and that is why it's such, like, many people view it as a very cathartic experience because finally somebody says it. On balance, it just feels like they get it. And that is kind of just very rare for satires in general, I think, because a lot of the time people are not satirizing something they've actually lived. Like, that's kind of one of those things where Hollywood is kind of, or like the movie industry is kind of full of people who have never experienced the things they're talking about. So they kind of make assumptions or go off people's accounts. And as a result, it often doesn't feel very, very authentic. And here, Mike Judge is drawing from personal experience, and that is why it works. And that, I think, that is why that kind of story works better if people write about what they know. Like, that's like almost a cliche in like kind of writing circles, that you should write what you know because it'll be more authentic and you'll draw from personal experience and you can add details from your own lived experience. And this is exactly what happens here, right? Like, a lot of the stuff doesn't necessarily need to be there, but it's more like a parade of moments that kind of just happen when you spend the bulk of your waking hours in that kind of environment.